the Senate Intelligence Committee formally and publicly supporting the intelligence community's findings about Russian election interference, despite the president's well-documented doubts in tweet after tweet after tweet. Let's bring in CNN Justice correspondent Evan Perez. Evan, the Republican chairman of the committee, unlike what we saw over in the House, the Senate Republican Intelligence Committee chairman backing these findings from the intelligence community.
That's right, Jim. This is a bipartisan finding from the Senate Intelligence Committee, and it says that the intelligence community assessment back in 2016, at the end of 2016, and it was published in early 2017, that it is sound work that was done by the intelligence community, that not only were the Russians responsible for meddling in the 2016 election, but that they had a preference for Donald Trump, and they were trying to hurt Hillary Clinton, and that's what the assessment of the intelligence community was. And the bipartisan committee in the Senate has found that this is a good finding that they had come up with. I'll read you a couple pieces of what the committee says. It says, since its publication, further details have come to light that bolster this assessment from the intelligence community. And it also says, quote, that the analysts were under no politically motivated pressure to reach any conclusions, which undermines the argument that you've heard from a lot of Republicans and from the president in particular, that the intelligence community under the Obama administration was acting in a politically motivated methods to try to help Hillary Clinton. They obviously have found otherwise here in the Senate.
And Evan, it really underlines the differences between what they did over in the House, on the House Intelligence Committee side, and what's being done in the Senate Intelligence Committee. Because you've heard over in the House Republican after House Republican taking aim at the findings that Russia was involved in meddling. The Senate Intelligence Committee taking a much more sober look at this.
Totally, a totally different assessment. And if you remember, the House Intelligence Committee even went so far as to say that there was no collusion, which is not something that the intelligence community even assessed as part of its work. So, look, I think you've seen a work being done by some of the president's allies in the House in particular to try to undermine not only the intelligence community assessments, but also the Mueller investigation, which is really the thing that I think is what they're more concerned about. And of course, President Trump, just this past few days, tweeted again his doubts about the intelligence community's assessment. He says, quote, Russia continues to say that they had nothing to do with meddling in our election, the president choosing to take the word of the Russians over his own intelligence community.
And it makes you wonder if the president will directly confront Vladimir Putin at this upcoming summit in Finland, armed with this intelligence committee report saying that the intelligence community had it dead on. Evan Perez, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Joining me now, Congressman Mike Quigley. He's a Democrat and a member of the House Intelligence Committee. I guess, first of all, President Trump, as you know, Congressman Quigley, he has cast doubt time and again on Russia's cyber attack on the 2016 election. They're meddling in 2016. He's falsely claimed that Democrats made this up to explain for their election losses. Does this report make it harder for him to make those types of arguments? And are you heartened to see this work come out of the Senate? Because now the American people can see this, something coming from both Republicans and Democrats about what happened in 2016.
Today's a good day. After a long stretch of bad days. Let's remember this finding was over a year and a half ago, and it was with high level of certainty that the unanimous intelligence community had this finding. The fact that the House committee had the opposite finding and was talking about the fact there was no collusion just coincides with the fact that the House side tanked the investigation, and they worked hand in glove with the White House to obstruct the investigation at absolutely every turn.
And the Senate Intelligence Committee says it found additional evidence of Russian interference. That is a very interesting portion of this report. Can you tell us what they might have found?
Well, I think there's a lot that they might have found. Just stemming from what we found on the House side, Mr. Conaway from Texas promised that they would release the transcripts of our investigation. I take him up on his promise. He's a good man. I think the American public deserves to know what we have learned. I think it would add to what the Senate bipartisan committee has found, and they stated today.
And the Senate Intelligence Committee Vice Chair Mark Warner, he tweeted this, and it's a very worrying thing that he tweeted. Russia will be back in 2018. We need to be ready. He's obviously talking about the midterm elections coming up in just 4 months from now. Are you confident the November elections will be secure, Congressman?
Not at all. Just in the last appropriation cycle, I was able to secure $380 million to repair our election infrastructure. That amount has been zeroed out for 2019 as the primaries come to their conclusions and we head for the general election. The State Department was given money, appropriated money, to fight Russian meddling. They admitted in front of the Senate committee that they have spent none of that money. The fact that the President of the United States continues to call this a witch hunt and a hoax gives no one in these other states that are not prepared any incentive to move forward. We have 13 states that have no paper record in their election equipment. So we wouldn't even know, we couldn't even go back after the fact to find out what the Russians did. And
so this could happen again, Congressman. This could happen again.
Most of our election equipment is so old, anti-cyber attacking software wouldn't even work on it. We need to change this. We need to be prepared.
And President Trump has repeatedly expressed his anger, Congressman, that Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. You're probably hearing some of our new reporting from Caitlin Collins about Scott Pruitt's request to replace Sessions. If the president were to do that, would that mean the end of the Russia investigation? You do get this sense from Scott Pruitt that he does like to ingratiate himself with the president.
Look, he's done exactly what the president has told him to do at the EPA. You imagine the scenario here. He goes there with the singular notion of ending this investigation. To do that, I imagine he'd have to fire Mr. Rosenstein, who would bring in someone else who would fire Mueller. I can't see any other reason he would do this. Come to the rescue of the President of the United States under attack. When these Senate Republicans came out with this report today, that was a great first step. What they need to do now is to protect the Mueller investigation, because this is additional evidence of the White House plan to end it.
And do you think anyone could get confirmed to replace Jeff Sessions? Because obviously if Jeff Sessions were to leave the scene, that would be a huge firestorm here in Washington. I would imagine you have some Republicans who would be balking at replacing Jeff Sessions because they would essentially see an effort to undermine the Russia investigation. Could anyone get confirmed to replace the Attorney General?
I imagine someone could get confirmed. I would also imagine that they would have to make a commitment to not disturb this investigation. I don't think that's what they have in mind. So it's time for profiles and courage. It's time for other Republicans to step up, let this investigation take its course.
And let me ask you this. Devin Nunes, the chairman of your committee, is still aiming to get documents and testimony on how the Justice Department handled the Clinton investigation and the Russia investigation. Do you think he is doing the president's bidding?
I think he's been doing the president's bidding since day one, when he went to the White House with his midnight excursion, when he went along with the White House gag order that witnesses don't have to answer questions, when he agreed not to subpoena key witnesses and documents, when he put together the Nunes memo, which basically put our national security at risk. The intel community and the Justice Department was extremely concerned with the recklessness of the information that was in that report. So this is absolutely no surprise. It's a continuation of the chairman's effort to help the president politically and legally, and in no way help the American public find out exactly what the Russians did and how to prevent it in the future.
And as you probably heard, Congressman, there are these very disturbing allegations about Congressman Jim Jordan, that when he was a wrestling coach at Ohio State University, that he turned a blind eye to sexual abuse by a doctor there. Obviously, we have to underline these are accusations, these are allegations, they have been proven. The Congressman's office has put out a statement saying that he did not do that. Do you think he should, though, resign in light of these accusations that have come out?
I've just heard about them. I believe this investigation should be allowed its full force to move forward. I don't know enough about it, having just heard this. It's extraordinarily disturbing. We'll let the investigation process take its course. Mr. Jordan has to come to terms with this.
Okay, Congressman Mike Quigley, thank you for tackling a lot of news tonight with us. Thank you very much for joining us.